underway. We have wasted enough time. So we were going to dive into some teams, whether or not we, should panic about some of these teams, and, whether or not they're going to be fine, whether or not they're just going to completely fall on their face. But before we get to that, we actually just got some breaking news here. We were paying attention to this a lot over, a couple of weeks ago. And Shohei Otani, his interpreter, the whole story was, stealing money out of Otani's account, using it to bet on sports and whatnot, not baseball, at least from what we know. It turned into this whole conspiracy theory, right, where, was it actually, even Shohei Otani, giving him the money or, to bet on sports for him. You saw all these conspiracies out there. You saw everything. But it looks like we have reached a point here where we could be, seeing a conclusion to this. So, according to the New York Times by Tim Arango and Michael Schmidt, says here, Ippei Mizuhara, the former translator for Shohei Otani, who was fired last month amid allegations he stole millions of dollars from the baseball star's bank account to cover debts that Mizuhara owed to an illegal bookmaker, is in negotiations to plead guilty to federal crimes in connection with the purported theft, according to 3 people briefed on the matter. He goes on to say here, the investigation, which began about 3 weeks ago after news of the alleged theft broke while Otani's team, the Dodgers, was opening their season in South Korea, is rapidly nearing a conclusion. And it also says here, I find this pretty interesting too, those briefed on the matter claim that prosecutors have uncovered evidence that Mizuhara may have stolen more money from Otani than the $4.5 million he was initially accused of pilfering, the people said. In particular, the authorities think they have evidence that Mizuhara was able to change the settings on Otani's bank account so Otani would not receive alerts and confirmations about the transactions, the 3 people said. Because a lot of people out there, Jim, they were saying, how does Otani not know about this? How did he not hear anything about this? And it looks like we have our answer to that. My quick reaction to this, I mean, that's terrible. First off, this is a guy, seemed like someone Otani trusted very much. And in the end, you couldn't trust him at all. It's terrible, considering they seemed like they were close friends. They seemed like they were almost brothers, right? They were together nonstop, 24/7, basically. That, I guess, for me, it just goes to show, like, my goodness, like, who can you really trust these days, So, Jim, I got to hear your reaction to this. What are you thinking about this whole thing?
It's fascinating because, I mean, Mizuhara is the most deceptive human on the face of the planet. Is that really the situation? That's what we're looking at here. And I guess that's how this is going to go down. Yeah. They were extremely close. This is very surprising. The whole thing is surprising. I don't know if I'm ever, this is just the skeptic in me, I don't know if I'm ever 100% going to believe anything that I'm told in the matter here. But what is ruled upon in the courts and what is decided is what we are going to have to go with and live with. And that's just what it is and move on, because there's no sense in wasting time, wasting energy, in stomping your feet and banging your hands on the desk for something that there is absolutely no ability to change anything on the matter. That's what it is. Most deceptive human on the face of the planet. You win, and we move on.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to this kind of stuff, you always wonder, like, what else is there that we don't know about, It seemed really fishy from the get-go, right? It seemed just very odd how this all happened. And, it looks like the story that we are getting, it looks like pretty much what's being painted for us is that this guy, Mizuhara, was just very good at being very sneaky, right? And just being a guy that you could believe and, with anything. And in the end, a guy that couldn't be trusted. That's at least what we are seeing here on the surface when it comes to this story. And, I saw all the conspiracies out there. I saw everything out there. A lot of people were thinking, because mainly the big one when this was all unfolding was Otani and, Mizuhara. The story just flipped, right? Mizuhara was saying, oh no, Otani gave me the money, right? He was the one that helped me out with all of this. And then all of a sudden Otani's people said, whoa, hold the phone. That's not what happened here. No, this money was stolen out of Otani's account. And then, all of a sudden, but that's where people started getting suspicious, right? Because he was saying this to people at ESPN, and then Otani's people came out and just reversed it, right? Like the reverse Uno card. So it's interesting. I guess pretty much what you just said right there, right? I mean, what else is there really to try and get from it? People, people in today's world, right? They're going to hear something. They're going to believe what they want to hear. So I still think you're going to see people still wonder about Otani. But I'll say this, Otani, he's going to have to be careful moving forward, right? And this is a guy, like, he was already a superstar before, but now he's a $700 million superstar, one of the highest paid athletes in the world. So I guess that's pretty much it. Any words of advice for Shohei Otani, Jim?
Background check your interpreter 4 times a year. Like players have to have surprise drug tests. There needs to be surprise background tests for your interpreters.
I got one for Otani. How about you just keep an eye on your bank account, my friend? I mean, my goodness. So, I know you're rolling in the dough, dude, but you got to dot your I's and cross your T's. You got to check your bank account.
That is the one thing that just seems odd about this is that, and I don't want to go down this road, but let's do it for a second, is that we're painting Otani as the biggest financial moron in the game. And we understand that players are not checking with their money, right? There have been enough baseball executives, because that I am not, that have stories about players, because that I am also not, or we're not, that the money situation for the players are not locked in. Players are getting checks. Players are leaving checks in their lockers. They're not cashing them. You got finance people coming in saying, hey, the players aren't cashing the checks. I truly do understand. But these were big dollar amounts that were disappearing from his bank account. And the fact he needs some financial people, or better financial people, because somebody should have been coming along saying, hey, look, a significant chunk of money keeps disappearing. And this, think about this. The number that we know for sure was $4.5 million, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we know. Now we say, what was Otani's salary last year? It was like 27 million or 25 million or something like that. That's before taxes. Yeah. That number gets more than cut in half at that tax bracket. Yeah. So to have that much money start to disappear, it's a significant amount. It's not a significant amount on 28 million, but it is a significant amount on like 12 or 13, which is probably closer to what he's actually getting. Yeah. So there's just, and remember, he's also paying commission out of that to his agent. So it's even less than that. The actual amount of money that was disappearing from his account was significant. Don't look at the total dollar that he was paid via salary, because a lot of that disappears with taxes and commissions and anything else for anyone else that he has hired. So get better money. Again, surprise background check for your interpreters and hire some good money guys.
It's kind of makes me think, because there are times where, I don't check my bank account, I'll admit that, there's times where I'm not completely on top of, checking my bank account every single day. And there have been times where I open it and I'm like, whoa, what the heck? Couple $100 is gone. Like, what the heck? And then I remember, like, oh, okay, I had this, like a little bill or something,
Right.
or like the yearly fees for the gym or something like that. But, I don't know, man. This was going on over a long period of time. That is the odd part to me. That is the thing. It's like, how do you, like, I don't know. It's like, how do you...
That's the one. And the other one is, how is he getting the money? How is the bookie? How maybe he had positioned with the bookie that this was Otani, and that's how he's getting that line of credit. Maybe he was lying to the bookie, and the bookie thought it was Otani, and because otherwise, there's no way this guy on his own is being afforded that line of credit, because that doesn't hold water. And again, just the money disappearing. It's like, we all have the apps, right, that we pay for, and it's like $10 a month or $5 a month or something like that. And months and months and months can go by because it's a small, insignificant portion of money. We all have experienced that firsthand. But let's also be careful not to try to align our own personal experiences and attach them to Otani and say, well, if I did that, then Otani, I can understand how Otani can do that. Let's hold on, because the $5 and $10 for those subscriptions have a pale in comparison to the dollar amounts, and the percentages also pale in comparison. If you had an app that was charging you $100 a month, you would notice that, and that's kind of closer to the comparison. It's not like it was $5 a month that he was missing. This was too much money to just go missing.
Yeah, and another thing about, that was weird about the whole thing too was I had read, I believe it was in the ESPN article, was the person that owned the illegal the whole operation that where Mizuhara was betting, he had been promoting that Otani, was someone that was going there, and so that one was a little murky. So a lot of people, you saw them saying, oh, okay, well, no, that was just as, it was the interpreter, it was Mizuhara, and but the guy, I'm going blank on the name, unfortunately, but he was basically advertising like, hey, Otani comes here, right? It's a big deal. So it's just like, even that, it's like, how does that not get back to Otani? How does his name not come up? Like, or how does that not come up to him? It's like, I don't know. It's just interesting, right?
It's not good. It does. The answers to those questions are not answers that we want to know.
Well, like, let's say, like, here, right? Let's say, I don't know, like some weird operation going on around where I live, and they're saying, hey, Robbie Hyde, he has his own YouTube channel. Not like I'm anything crazy. I'm not famous or anything. I'm just saying, like, I feel like if my name was being brought up somewhere, I don't know, maybe there's a chance that I don't hear about it, but I feel like, I don't know, if I'm Otani, like, I mean, that's a big name. I feel like someone would have to hear about that, and that somehow would get back to him. Like, how does that not get back? I don't know. Very weird.
I don't buy that Otani is this stupid. Like, we want to all believe that Otani is just dumb, and I don't think he is. I know that there is a language and a culture barrier and a gap, but I still don't believe that Otani is this stupid to have this kind of financial situation, let that kind of a person be that close to him. But again, like I said a couple minutes ago, if this is how it goes, there is no point in stomping your feet and banging your fist, because this is what is decided. It is how it moves on, and then we all move on. And that's that. I think about this. There are more people that are involved with this, right? It's not just the interpreter. Like, I really want to know, like, the people what do other people have to say? How is there no? I mean, have I missed it? Nobody else is coming and saying anything. Yeah. Like, this just, dude, let's just.
Well, hey, if it went through an investigation, I would imagine, pretty much it all falls on Mizuhara. My initial thing, I remember my first reaction to this whole story was, I don't think Otani did anything wrong necessarily. I don't think he was the one that was betting. My initial reaction was he found out about this and he just wanted to help out a friend, right? Which still is not legal.
That's still a problem,
right? Still a problem, and it's still you got your you got your hands involved, right? That's as far as I thought. I never thought Otani was the one placing bets and doing whatever. I never for me personally, I never took it that far. But hey, it is what it is. I'm sure we'll get some more details here in the next couple of days. So we will have to just wait.
And by the way, I'm with you on that. That is what I think is most likely what happened, is that this got completely out of control for this guy. He was extended the line of credit because the bookies knew he was attached to Otani. He was given that line of credit because they knew he was good for it. And Otani was trying to bail him out and help him out, but that's a bad thing too. Yeah. But in the end, who knows? Well, we may never know the true story. Like I said, I don't know if I'll ever believe 100% what ends up coming out of this thing.
Who knows? I will say this. I'm just glad it's done. All right.
Yes.
I just want to.
I hope so.
Yeah. I just want to get back to some baseball, and I'm sure Major League Baseball is absolutely relieved. Who knows what went on with this whole thing, but sure they have to be sighing or a breath of relief, I would say. So it is what it is. But Major League Baseball, they don't have to panic about it anymore. But there are some teams within Major League Baseball that might be hitting the panic button. Listen, the month of April, the first couple of months, I'm sure you have noticed this too. Even the first weekend of baseball, it's overreactions. It's the over-exaggeration of everything. But, we're about 10, 11, 12 games in for most of these teams, and you're definitely starting to see some teams at this point where they're absolutely out of it. It's done. Their season is pretty much over, right? You got the Marlins that look pretty much dead in the water at this point, no pun intended.
Yep.
The White Sox look done. Surprisingly enough, the Oakland A's are in third place the last time I checked. I mean, I'm just saying.
Oakland, in my power rankings, I moved them above the number 29 spot last week for the first time since I started doing power rankings. They don't suck. They don't suck.
I came into this year saying, listen, I think the Oakland A's, I don't think they're going to be great, but I think they're going to be better what people think,
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a whole different subject. But there are teams that should be, at least as of right now, in my opinion, that should have better records than what they have. And Major League Baseball, MLB.com, they came out with an article that was today, actually very early this morning, 1:14 a.m. Eastern time today. So they have an article, what's the panic level for the 7 slow starting teams? And they have in this article, they have the Astros, they have the Diamondbacks, they have the Minnesota Twins, we got the San Francisco Giants, we got the St. Louis Cardinals. I know you love your St. Louis Cardinals, Jim. And we also have the Seattle Mariners along with the Marlins. And I felt like maybe there's even a couple of teams that could have been on here, right? Considering they did put the Cardinals, who at the time of this article had a 500 record. But let's kind of go through this. Let's go through these teams. Astros, at the time of this article being written, they were 4-8, and that looks like it's about to be 4-9, considering they're losing 9-2 to the Kansas City Royals. Man, oh man, I'm just saying. Houston Astros. Is it time to hit the panic button on the Houston Astros, Jim? What do you think?
Well, the interesting element to the Houston Astros is that they have played a tough schedule. So when I look at panic button and when I look at what am I buying, what am I selling, all that stuff, Houston they're playing Kansas City right now. And that is supposed to be, that should be a series that they win. They have played the Yankees. They have played the Blue Jays. They have played the Rangers. So that's a tough schedule. So to come out of that group of games, you would like to at least be 500. You would like to have won some home games, won more home games than you did.
Yeah.
And but look, they split with Texas, right? You get a 4-game set. You take 2 out of Texas. That shows that you're tough. But the Framber Valdez thing, I think that is an issue. I think Verlander, my gut tells me he's going to be on and off the IL all season. Yeah. I mean, Verlander over under 15 starts. Can you confidently say over? So their pitching is going to be a concern. I guess they're still going to have trouble winning at home. In the end, this Houston Astros team, I have not wavered from this team still being able to win the division. But these are, look, I don't just look past this first week and a half of games, because Houston's going to have wanted those games, especially if you get into wild card conversations, tiebreaker conversations, and the Orioles are winning the East, and the Rangers are winning the West, and the Yankees and Astros are within a game of each other, and New York has the tiebreaker because they swept the Astros back in the opening series. Yeah. So these games do matter. And I think, but again, in the end, I still haven't, I'm not going to take Houston off the line of, potential division winner. I think they can still do that, but that pitching is some cause for concern. If Valdez is done, I don't know. That's dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing with the Astros right now, it's their starting pitching, right? Verlander was already on the IL. Lance McCullers Jr. never even started this year with Verlander, right? And then Frank Valdez going down recently. They have Spencer Arrigati making his MLB debut. Obviously, that did not go very well. So this is where the Astros and their organization, this is where they're going to start feeling it, right? Because their farm system is not very deep, right? They tend to get a lot out of these guys in their farm, but when you look at the rankings on Baseball America, Pipeline, they don't have a very high ranking with their farm system. And, they had to get rid of a couple of guys to bring Justin Verlander back, last year. And, the Astros, their farm system, this is where it could come back to bite them a little bit, because they don't really have a lot of guys that they can call upon. Framber Valdez, hopefully everything is okay with the elbow. I don't know what is going on with all these pitching injuries. That's a whole different conversation for a different day. But right now, I'm a little worried about the Astros with their starting pitching and the durability. The offense, we all know these guys can bang, right? They have the bats. That's not really anything to be concerned about. Yordan Alvarez, had a big game yesterday. So I'm not worried about this lineup. At the end of the day, you got to pitch. And sure, Ronald Blanco, he can go out there and throw, no-hitters, near no-hitters every single time. But, right now the depth is not looking great. I do think they are going to turn this around, personally. It is the Houston Astros at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I feel like the ship will right itself. And luckily for them, no one is off to a hot start in that West, right? So that, I think, is going to go in their favor. I do think they'll right this ship eventually. What do you think? Do you agree? Disagree?
I mean, I want to say yes. The situation, I really think Bregman was hurting them in that first week of games. The bullpen was a problem because the bullpen had one of the worst ERAs in baseball. Alex Bregman, when I went on and did power rankings on Monday, I believe he had 1 RBI. This team is hitting Yordan Alvarez, Jose Altuve, Jeremy Pena, Yainer Diaz, Kyle Tucker. Those guys are hitting. But the Houston Astros, despite that, are still only 17th in runs scored coming into today. So, they've got 5 or 6 guys that are clicking and hitting right now. But the problem is it comes around to Bregman and it dies. Yeah. Bregman not driving anybody in. So either Yordan Alvarez has to hit a home run, or it just the rally dies with Bregman and with Jose Abreu. So they got to get going. The bullpen has to lock in. You have to figure out. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to happen. There's a lot of time for it to happen. The Astros are the one team that I think will find a way and will still. I'm going to say that the Astros will still find their way to the top of the division by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think they're going to end up being fine. And we actually do have a good hot take that was submitted today. Instead of hot takes, we're going to call it fair or foul from now on. And we had a good one here. We had a good hot take here from Sean on Xland, Palmer Designs, or at Palmer Designs _. Go follow him. He makes great graphics. But he put here, Jim, I got to hear you on this. I got to hear what you think on this one. His hot take, or his fair or foul. Astros trade Bregman at the deadline. Fair or foul?
That really depends on if they are a playoff team. If they are not a playoff team, then that is fair. He will be traded if this team is not going to make the playoffs. And if you get to that trade deadline, and they are, 8 games out of that last wild card spot, or they're below 500, I do believe that they will trade Bregman. They will only hold on to Bregman if they still believe they have a shot to make the playoffs and compete. That's the only reason why. Mets are in the same position with Pete Alonso. They'll hold on to him as long as they think they can compete. If they can't, then I think they'll move on.
Yeah, I think with Bregman, I think what makes it tough with that is because it's Alex Bregman, right? He's one of your leaders in the clubhouse. He's one of your best bats. Very good defensively. The only situation I could see him getting moved, because I don't see the Astros being out of it, right? I just don't. But let's say they are, then yeah, I could see a situation. If the Astros, because all of a sudden just shockingly fall off the face of the planet, yeah, I could see that. But let's say, could we maybe see a situation where the Astros, man, oh man, they need some pitching, right? Let's say they're just down in the cellar when it comes to the pitching department, right? Maybe a situation pops up where there could be some kind of a deal where, in my opinion, I don't think they're bringing him back, right? I just don't see them getting a long-term deal. Now, they have worked out deals with Boris clients, so it's definitely possible. I just wonder if he's going to end up going elsewhere, similar to George Springer. Maybe there could be a situation where if they really need some pitching, maybe there could be some kind of a deal worked out. That's the only way I see it happening personally. What do you think?
I think the problem is, let's think about what pitchers could be available that would match up with Houston. I don't see Miami, the Jesus Luzardo thing.
Right.
Miami and Houston just don't feel like good trade partners there, but they're going to want a ton of prospects. And you just talked about the Astros farm system being lacking. There are going to be teams that can beat that Houston offer easily.
Yeah.
So that'll be a problem. And then a guy like Shane Bieber, who we could have thought would be a trade candidate, he's now off the board. Dylan Cease got moved right before the season started. You'll be looking at maybe Blake Snell, if the Giants fall out of it, could be available. You could think about, I don't know. I don't know how many trade partners for impactful starting pitching there will be that'll match up with Houston, because that would be the way to go. That definitely would be the way to go. I just, off the top of my head, I don't see the trade partners, because Miami's going to want prospects. Other teams are going to be able to beat them out. So we got to go somewhere where maybe you're over the player you're bringing back. It's kind of an undesirable trade scenario, but Houston kind of feels forced into it. And I don't know. I don't see that there right now.
Right. Yeah, I don't either. I don't really see any sort of a scenario where you can just do a swap for like a team needing a bat. Like, I don't know. I don't see that personally. So yeah, I think he ends up staying. I thought that was a fun hot take, though.
Oh yeah, that's a great one. Bregman still could get Bregman. I mean, if you're Houston and you've got, let's take a look at the standings right now. We just think about teams that may be in the market for a third baseman for the back half, the stretch. The Toronto Blue Jays might. If the Toronto Blue Jays are still hanging around, the Blue Jays might. Your no, I'm not going to go there. Cleveland could, Toronto, maybe. Who else could surprise us? Maybe Minnesota. You've got Royce Lewis injuries that they're dealing with. The Texas Rangers. That's a division, so that's not going to happen. I'm just going through teams. Obviously, the Rangers. That's nonsense. That wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So I mean, I do think there's some American League teams. There's a couple of them, and then in the National League, maybe the Phillies. If you're moving pieces around and you're just trying to find spots for guys, you're just looking for a bat for a couple of months. Maybe the Phillies, if they feel like they got to stock up, and I think there are some teams that could find a way to go trade for Bregman and give a prospect or two back to Houston. I could see it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I could definitely see some teams. If the Astros are out of it, then yeah, like for sure, I could absolutely see some teams lining up to try and get him, especially if he's just a rental. Now, let's talk about a team that was in the World Series last year, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Right now, let's just they wrote this article this morning, and I keep forgetting to check to see, have they...
They won today.
They won today. Okay. Yeah, they won 5-3 today. So they're 6-7 now. But they are listed here as a team that maybe we should panic about. Personally, for me, I'm not panicking with this team, right? I'm not, right? Jordan Montgomery, he will eventually
not even there yet.
be on the team. Eduardo Rodriguez, he went down with a lat injury. Seawald, he was having some issues. I think they're going to be fine eventually. You got to remember here, this is a team, you could say World Series hangover for them, right? They didn't win it, but they still got that far. So I'm not surprised to see them a little sluggish. I remember last year in the regular season, they basically just got in, right? Everyone wants to talk about the Rangers just getting in, but same with the Diamondbacks too, basically. They had to really fight to get that last spot. But, a couple of guys right now down. I think Jordan Montgomery, he's a durable guy. Once he comes in and he starts making, a few starts, I think the rotation is going to solidify itself. I like the bats in the lineup. Corbin Carroll. It's Corbin Carroll. So, yeah, sure, they just got beat up by the Braves, but it's the Braves at the end of the day. I think they're going to be fine, personally. I think they're going to be right there in the thick of things with a wild card. What do you think?
No, I'm with you. They had, if you take that Braves series out of the equation where they got swept, and had them play somebody and let's say they took 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
Right. Then they're above 500 and everything's fine. That Braves series, that's a difficult one for them to get through. And also consider the rest of the National League teams. Phillies are 6-6. The Padres are 7-8. The Giants are 5-8. So I think that there really are. It's not like there's a ton of teams that have got off to these hot starts, and all the other wild card teams are 8-2 or 9-1. I know the NL Central is playing well. Pittsburgh's 9-3, Milwaukee 7-3, Cubs are 7-5. But even still, the Cubs at 7-5. What's that? A game and a half ahead of Arizona. So it's definitely Arizona. I think is fine.
Yeah, I agree. So next team, they have a team that I wasn't as high on this team coming in to the regular season as a lot of other people, the Minnesota Twins. They did win today, salvaging their series against the Dodgers. Tyler Glasnow, man, he balled out in this series. My goodness.
Yes.
But Minnesota ended up salvaging it and, sure, lost 2 out of 3. But they've gotten off to a pretty overall sluggish start. I was worried about this Twins team coming in. Sure, you still got Pablo Lopez, but Sonny Gray was really good for them last year. Like, I don't think people realize how good he was. He was a big part of that rotation last year. We'll talk about the Cardinals in just a little bit. But the Minnesota Twins, sure, Byron Buxton, when he's healthy, he's great. Carlos Correa, he's off to a better start. For me, I'm probably in the middle on the Twins. If you're going out of 10, I'm going like probably a 5 out of 10, maybe a 6 out of 10 on the panic meter. Where are you?
That division, I think the problem is not necessarily with the Twins. It's with something they can't control, and that is Cleveland. The fact that Cleveland is hitting, right? That was what they missed last year, was the ability to score runs, the ability to do damage with the bats, and Cleveland's doing that. I believe Cleveland did it again today. I think they scored it up Who were they facing? Cleveland put up no, that's the wrong team. Cleveland put up 7 today.
Highest
Cleveland
run
scoring
differential
runs.
in the American League. Actually, highest run differential in the major leagues
Yeah.
right
So
now. Look at the
Cleveland scoring.
Cleveland Guardians. That's
the problem with Minnesota. Is not necessarily that Minnesota is maybe out to a sluggish start. It's the fact that Cleveland's on fire. We were just talking about this for the National League, right? I'm not worried about Arizona because it's not like the team that would replace them is on fire and is showing us something we didn't expect. In the AL Central, that is exactly what's happening. Yep. Cleveland's on fire right now. I mean, today, the last 2 days, Allen and Bibee didn't really put up a good line, but in the end, because the team is hitting and scoring runs, they're still able to get a win. I believe they lost yesterday, but they won today, again, despite a poor showing. Yeah, yesterday they lost. Logan Allen struggled. Today they won, even though Tanner Bibee gave up 5 runs in the first 5 innings. Yeah. Last year, that's a loss.
Yeah.
That's the problem for Minnesota, is that Cleveland looks like they're going to hit this year because it's still cold, and that's usually what'll slow you down too. That's the problem. So Minnesota, I do think there is definitely some concern there. This might be Cleveland's division.
Yeah, I wasn't high on Cleveland coming in. I like the pitching. I like the young pitching they have, but I'm a little worried about the bats. But Kwan is off to a great start. Jose Ramirez is being Jose Ramirez. What do you know? Andres Jimenez is even hitting a little bit. I mean, he's been pretty solid for the last couple of years, but he's contributing. Overall, everyone is just doing their part. Like Josh Naylor coming into today had a 543 slugging, a 165 WRC plus. Even David Fry has been contributing here. So I think you're right about, looking at the rest of the division. For the Minnesota Twins, I like the bats that they have. I'm worried about the rotation. I love Pablo Lopez. I really do. But when you're replacing Sonny Gray with Chris Paddock, I like Louis Varland, but again, he's not really proven in the rotation. He's shown what he can do out of the bullpen, but I want to see what he can do in the rotation over a full season. Until I see what he can do over a bigger stretch, I'm not very confident. I don't know. But hey, they did pick up the win today, so they're now 4-6. So getting a win against the Dodgers is not going to be easy for anyone. So
and
I'd
Paddock
say I'm in
was
the middle
on
right now. That's kind of where I'm at. So
Paddock was on the mound today. Paddock only gave up 2 runs, didn't get through 5, but got into the 5th, got a couple outs into the 5th. He only gave up 2 runs. I think Paddock's going to give you those starts, and it's almost a tease, because you feel like, why can Paddock do that against the Dodgers, but then he'll go and do this against the White Sox, right? Like, that's what's going to happen. Paddock is going to give you those moments where you feel like he's a very capable option in this rotation, but he's also going to flip-flop, and you're going to wonder how many more starts you have to experience with him.
We need that
up
rookie
and down
Paddock
guy.
Season. That's what we need, right? We need that rookie Paddock season. He just hasn't been able to get it together. Health, he was incredible. Yeah. He was a great story that year. Moving on to the NL West, a team that I was high on coming into the year, because my goodness, what an offseason they had. The San Francisco Giants coming into today 4-8, and let's just make sure, are they playing today? They did play today, right?
They did. They finally beat the Nats.
Finally. Hey, well, look at the Nationals. We both talked about coming into this year that, hey, the Nationals, they could be a pretty fun team this year. They got some young talent. I don't think they have enough to really go for a playoff run, but I think they could be a team that, in that 70 win range, 70, 75. But anyway, for the Giants, off to a bit of a slow start. Blake Snell making his Giants debut didn't really go all that great, but hey, that's what happens when Scott Boras isn't getting you a deal early enough to give yourself an actual spring training. So you can thank Scott Boras for that one. Or maybe Blake Snell. Maybe he should have taken the Yankee offer. I don't know. But the Giants, great offseason, isn't translating into immediate results. I'm still, if I were to go on the panic meter, I'm probably at like a 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10 for the Giants right now. Because we have seen teams have good off seasons in the past, and it doesn't really translate into wins completely. So I'd say I'm in that 3, 4, and maybe even 2. Right? I need to see more. These especially with Snell. Got to give him a little bit more time to get going. He didn't, sure, he's throwing bullpens wherever he was, waiting to get signed, but it's not spring training at the end of the day. So, going to give him a little bit more time. I think personally, I'm going to give this Giants team more time. How about you?
Yeah, they need more time to start out. Logan Webb's giving up too many hits. He's got to cut down on the contact and the hits. The strikeout rate is down. The hit rate is up. Yeah. That's your best pitcher, right? And your second best pitcher just finally made his debut the other day.
Yeah.
Jordan Hicks has stepped up and has actually been your best pitcher.
Oh,
Jordan
my
Hicks
goodness.
he's been fantastic. Harrison has been, I believe it was good, bad, and good, and that's what you're going to get from a pitcher like that. You're basically going to alternate good and bad, and you'll have some back-to-back good, but you're also going to have some back-to-back bad. So the pitching is going to be that you need Webb to get locked in, you need Snell to get ramped up. That's going to be important. And they just got to start hitting. They're bottom 10 in pretty much all of the offensive categories. And that is with a Michael Conforto resurgence that we have experienced here over this first week and a half of the season. So, I mean, good for Conforto having this, again, this sort of this bounce back, but the rest of the team has to step it up. Matt Chapman's doing what Matt Chapman does, people. Yeah. He's going to, you're going to be hoping for extra base hits, homers or nothing. And if it's not a homer, it'll be a double. He's got a 208 average, and because his average is terrible, even his on base, that was the thing he could do with Toronto, and he's not doing quite yet with San Francisco. Yeah. The batting average is 208, and the on base is 263. That's not going to work. So he's struggling. Soler is doing the thing I was worried about Soler, but it's early. Soler's 2 home runs, and he's hitting 191 with an OPS of 687. Again, some people I know have no interest in talking about batting average, but we can all agree that 191 is a bad indication of the hitter, whether you like batting average or not. So there just needs to be more. Tyro Estrada needs to get going. And I think they'll come around. I still think this San Francisco team is a playoff team.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and Jung-Hoo Lee, you got to give him a little bit more time, right?
He needs
Going
time.
From the KBO, Major League Baseball, right? Chapman, like you said, I think Chapman, that was another late signing, right? You're seeing these late signings. Let's see how Jordan Montgomery does with the Diamondbacks. Shoot, I'm sure there'll be, a couple of clunkers to start off this year. You never know.
And timing is a big thing for Matt Chapman, and that's what hitters get with spring training, timing. So when Matt Chapman came over to the Toronto Blue Jays, he was coming off a poor offensive year with Oakland, and a lot of people were worried that it was because of his hip, because of some surgery he had, a procedure. And Ed Sprague, the, I believe, player development, I can't remember his exact title with Oakland, Ed Sprague was on record saying, no, it's not that. His timing was off all year. And if he starts a year late and is unable to get his timing down because he doesn't get the number of reps, the number of at-bats, the number of pitches he needs to get locked in, it's just bad news.
Yeah. But overall, I think this Giants team, a lot of them at the end of the day, they just need a bit more time, in my opinion. So let's move on to the next team. And this is an interesting one. One that you have definitely voiced your opinion over this past offseason. I'm actually a little surprised they're on this list because I didn't even know where the majority of people were on this team. I know where you were, the St. Louis Cardinals. Coming into today, 6-6, and I believe they lost. They did lose today, losing to the Phillies 4-3. So they are now 6-7. And I feel like I already know where you're going with this one. Let's just have you start this off. St. Louis Cardinals, are you panicking?
I don't think this is a playoff team. I don't know how everybody came around and said, oh, it's going to be great. Everything that went wrong last year is going to magically be fixed thanks to Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn. I loved the Sonny Gray edition. That I
He
think
pitched well.
was huge. And he made his debut finally a little late because of the hamstring thing, I believe it was, right? And okay, great. Sonny Gray is going to be good for you. And I know Lance Lynn, I think last time out, Lance Lynn was able to be effective. But I think that I don't think this rotation is good enough. I am worried that they're just not developing the young talent. I mean, Nolan Gorman's hitting home runs, but he's not doing, he's striking out a ton, and that is going to hurt you. So I don't like how they've developed a lot of their young talent, and even to this point, Jordan Walker's doing nothing this year. So
I'm looking at these numbers right now. None of them are doing really anything.
They're not. I mean, Brendan Donovan's okay. Alec Burleson, no. We're not even seeing Dylan Carlson. Like, they just haven't developed the young talent. The pitching is not good enough. Look, Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado are incredible baseball players. They're slow out of the gate.
Yeah.
They're older. So we cannot expect, peak years out of those two anymore. And if you don't get peak years out of them and you're not developing the young talent and the rotation isn't good enough, and last year in the clubhouse, the veteran leadership wasn't present enough, so they had to go out and get Matt Chapman. It was such a problem that Nolan Arenado accidentally threw everybody under the bus. And behind the wheel is Oliver Marmol, who look, there's talk that the reason why the team was held together his first year was because of Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina. Those two leave and everything falls apart. And this has been a slow start for them. It is absolutely no surprise to me. I don't think this is a playoff team.
Yeah. Right now with the Cardinals, I'd say I was maybe a little higher than you were. I wasn't through the roof, right? Even Fangraphs projected this team to be pretty good. And I'm thinking, I see a team that's better than last year, but is it a playoff team? Right? I was kind of in the middle from where you were and, from where other people were, right? High expectations, you had low. I'd say I'm in the middle somewhere. I saw a team coming into this year, maybe like an 83, 84 win team that fights for a wild card, but just couldn't quite do it. I do like the additions of Gibson and Lynn for innings, but is it
they
really
have gone better
enough, right?
They could have aimed higher. They could have gone, they could have had Jordan Montgomery or Blake Snell or Dylan Cease. They should have aimed higher.
Yeah, I agree. Don't be wrong. I like Sonny Gray, but I look at Sonny Gray. I might take a few people off with this one. I think Sonny Gray is more of, I guess, a 2 in my opinion. Like I see an excellent game 2 starter, right? Like I would love to have Sonny Gray pitching game 2 in the playoffs for me, but he's not an ace to me, right? And I feel like the Cardinals, I thought Aaron Nola to the Cardinals was a thing, right? But look, he wanted to stay with Philly pretty much. Like you said, I felt like they could have done more there. These bats are very slow out of the gates, right? Gorman, he's got a few home runs. Donovan, he's got pretty good on base. So I don't know. Maybe they just need a little time to just gel, but.
So I'll throw this out there too, because I think maybe the biggest pushback that my rant would receive may get back to the Brendan Donovan, because I think a lot of Cardinals fans love Brendan Donovan, and you should love Brendan Donovan. He's a very good baseball player. I know I said he's okay. He's better than okay. He's a good baseball player. But the problem is I don't think he's good on this team. Brendan Donovan's on-base percentage to start the year is near 400, which means he should be scoring a ton of runs, right?
Yep.
But when the guys behind him aren't getting the job done, how's that going to help him? He has scored 8 runs this year. Now you're like, oh, that should be good, right? It's not even, it is 38th in the league, 8 runs scored with a near 400 on-base percentage. So yes, Brendan Donovan is a very good player, but with the guys around him, it kind of takes away from how effective he can be, because he's getting on base and then he's not coming around to score.
Yeah, like I don't know. It's again like kind of looking at the Cardinals. I don't know. Like I don't think they're a team that really should be like listed as like a panic team. Like because I
they're on the outside looking in.
Yeah, like I see, like, just because of how bad their season was last year, it's like, should they be a team that's even on this list? I think you could even make the case, sorry to bring up your Blue Jays, but I feel like even the Blue Jays or even the Rays could have been in this spot, right?
Yeah, the Blue Jays fans are panicking. The
Yeah,
Blue Jays fans are panicking.
Spoiler alert, the Blue Jays are not on this list. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. I figured even the Rays would be on this list. But no, I'd rather put one of those teams instead because, look, at least the Blue Jays were in the playoffs last year, and they're off to a bit of a slow start. Losing again today, so they're 6-7 now. So I don't know. I'd say with the Cardinals, I'm just in the middle. Like, I don't know. I don't really know what really they even are. All right. So anyway, let's move on here. We got a couple more teams. Now this is a team I definitely wonder if you can talk about this team. The Mariners, right? Coming into today, 4-8 as of right now.
They got the win, 5-8.
Yep. So they did win today, right? But obviously, my Red Sox took them on in the first series, split with them, lost a few more after that. So the Mariners, they're looking a little sluggish. George Kirby, he's looked a little rough. Luis Castillo's looked a little rough. Hey, a lot of people were very high on the starting pitching of the Mariners, and I thought the offense looked better coming into the year, but I don't know. I mean, their run differential so bad right now, -21. 42 runs scored compared to 63. I don't know. The Mariners, I feel like once that starting pitching gets themselves right, I think they're going to be okay. But we saw this last year with the Mariners, right? Slow start, kind of a 500 team, just dwindling right there. Wasn't really much going on with the Mariners until that second half after the All-Star break. And then they turned on the Jets, ended up falling short. But are we seeing a repeat of last year with the Mariners? Right now, for me, I think they're going to be okay, right? Because starting pitching is starting pitching, and they have some good guys in this rotation, obviously, right? I love Castillo, I love Kirby. You got the Gilberts, you got the Millers, right? So right now, I'm okay with the Mariners. I'd probably say I'm like a 2 or a 3. I'd probably say even a 2 out of 10 for me personally. What do you think?
I would probably be at least at a 5.
Yeah. Okay.
They're striking out. They're striking out too damn much again.
Yep.
The only team that has struck out more than the Seattle Mariners is a team that has nearly 100 more at bats than them, and that's the Dodgers.
Yeah.
They played 2 more games. So if you give Seattle 2 more games, they'll blow past the Dodgers strikeout total. They're striking out too damn much. Julio Rodriguez is striking out too much. I was watching the game earlier today. Yes, Seattle won, but my man's striking out when there's opportunities to do damage and be productive. That's happening too much up and down the lineup. That's the problem with this Seattle team, and I think is going to plague them and hurt them again. This is a approach at this point. I don't know if this is the players. This is the approach. Teoscar Hernandez's K rate went through the roof last year with Seattle. I think if you put Julio Rodriguez on a different team, I think that K rate comes down and he becomes the MVP that you want him to be. He's striking out like this, which creates these big dips in his season. It's going to kill his MVP chances. Again, we're talking about MVP. We're talking about April 10th. Jim, shut up. What are you talking about? He's doing this again. He did it last year. He'll do it again throughout the season. It's a problem. And it is throughout the entire Seattle team a problem. They strike out too much, which kills their opportunities to do damage and score runs. Their pitching has been weird this year. Luis Castillo hasn't been that great. Again, competition. Who are you playing right now? The Seattle Mariners, to this point, the competition that they've gone up against, they went up against Boston. They split with Boston. Boston's pitching phenomenally, right? Yeah. What kind of credit do we give that to? Do we give that credit to Boston? Do we say, hey, it's because they face Seattle and Seattle strikes out a ton? I think you can probably assign equal credit there, right? They lose 2 out of 3 to Cleveland. That's a series that they should win. They lose 2 out of 3 to Milwaukee. That's a series they should win. They lose 2 out of 3 to Toronto, a Toronto team that came into the series 2 games below 500 with a ton of issues. You've got Luis Castillo struggling. You've got George Kirby. George Kirby has been struggling. I mean, that's the one that's really throwing me for a loop, is that he's going out there, the Kirby numbers. So against Cleveland, He couldn't even get through 4 innings last week. Gave up 8 runs against the Toronto Blue Jays yesterday. He gives up 5 runs on 8 hits over 4 innings. So George Kirby has not, I mean, his first start against Boston was good, but the last 2 starts have not been good. Luis Castillo has not given you a Luis Castillo start yet. These are all things that they're concerning. The strikeout thing, though, is my biggest issue. I believe that Kirby and Castillo are going to come around and they're going to have great seasons. You're getting good outings from Gilbert. There was another one today. So I think you're going to get the pitching that you expect. But I feel like this team is destined to just run last season back again.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a similar performance, which could mean that they're on the outside looking in for the playoffs.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, they're still going to be right in the thick of things. I do agree.
They will, but they'll come up short. That's the problem.
Yeah.
They will be right in the thick of things, but then when they have a big game and they strike out 16 times in a game they got to win because all season long they just close their eyes and swing for the fences, it's going to kill them.
Yeah, he's definitely had some clunkers. I'm definitely worried about this lineup, the strikeout numbers, and that's even after kind of revamping their lineup, trying to reduce the strikeouts, and they lead Major League Baseball in strikeout percentage. So
it's an approach. It's coming from the coaches.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on. I will say for the starting pitching, Luis Castillo, Kirby, they haven't looked their best, but luckily the advanced numbers are looking better, right? Their FIPS are a lot lower than the ERA, so I do think you're going to see those numbers stabilize at some point. Again, it is April 10th. This is why I usually don't like to start power rankings for me personally, because I always just want to wait just to see. Like I always, love me some power rankings. I just, for me personally, I always just like to wait a little bit just so I can see some of these numbers stabilize. I'm not saying that's the right way or the wrong way. It's just my own personal touch to it. So advanced numbers look better, right, for some of these guys, but that doesn't matter, though. I'm concerned with what you said, the strikeouts, right?
Yeah.
The lineup, right? The lineup. This is what happened last year. So it's like you're throwing in different ingredients, but you're getting the same result, right?
They're also not running. As a team, they have attempted 5 stolen bases, which is towards the bottom of the league. You have, that's a key element to the game now. You can win games based on that. You can turn walks and singles into doubles a lot easier than you used to be able to. And if you're not doing that, you're going to, I think, be in a tough spot. We're going to see teams get by and win games they're not supposed to because they're taking the extra base.
Yeah, and they're 24th in base running right now. So, I don't know. Seems like there's like you said, an approach problem, an organizational problem. But hey, as long as they win 54% of their games, that's all that matters, right? So, moving on, we got one more team to talk about. Now, when all these guys started going down, I was thinking there's no way this team's doing anything. The Miami Marlins are the last team on this list. If you were hoping the Marlins were going to be a contender this year, I didn't once, you knew Alcantara was not going to be there, Uri Perez was not going to be there, Garrett, Eber Cabrera going down with some shoulder stuff. Sure, you got Luzardo, but that lineup is not going to be a lineup that's going to carry them through the season. That was a team, they needed their starting pitching to carry them, and they lost all of them, basically. So, sure, I like some bats in that lineup, right? I like me some Jake Berger, homering today against the Yankees. Jazz Chism, he's electric when he's healthy, but it's not Luis Ariz, obviously. He's Luis Ariz. Guy just hits everything. But that's not a lineup that's going to just bash your way to a playoff spot, right? They didn't have the pitching. Right, 1-11. Well, I guess 2-11 now. They just won tonight. So, still, that doesn't make it any better. I'm 10 out of 10 on if you even want to hit panic. Right, because to me, I didn't have any expectations of this team coming in. I even said a bold prediction coming into this year: Jesus Luzardo will be traded by the trade deadline. I think that's inevitable at this point. I'm 10 out of 10. I'm sure you're probably in a similar spot. What do you think?
They're done. They've been eliminated. Done. last year so it was all about the first half of the year, and then they just hung on. First half of the year, they were 53-39, and they had that insane one-run record streak that they won. They were like 14-0 or 15-0, something ridiculous to start the year in one-run games. And then the rest of the way, the second half, they were 31-39. They just barely made it in, and this is just a continuation of that. You lose Sandy on top of it. They made no additions of note during the offseason to try to build on any momentum they felt they had off of last season. So that one run game record, that was the flukiest thing. And if you take that out, if you take the luck that needs to go into that
and
out,
the pitching,
yes, they would have been a below 500. Now, look, it's not fair to take it out because they still won the game. Look, you play baseball, you win a 2-1 game. You won a win is a win.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for an indication on the future of this team, the stability of this team, if all of your wins are one or significant portion of your wins are one-run games and you're just getting by the skin of your teeth and the ball's bouncing your way, eventually that's going to stop. So Miami is done. I think, like you said, Luzardo's on his way out. I also think Luis Ariz is going to get dealt. I think Tanner Scott is going to get dealt. If they're healthy, they're going to get dealt. And I don't even know if we're going to make it to the trade deadline for some of these guys.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. That's what you got Peter Bendix there now, right? Coming over from the Rays, took over everything. I mean, he's probably just chomping at the bit, right? Thinking like, okay, perfect. That's what I wanted. Terrible start to the year. Terrible season. I can unload all these guys, and I can start building my organization, right? Yeah, I think you're going to see that once again. Another Marlins fire sale, right? The Marlins live and die by the fire sale, and it's like anytime they have success, they just toss it all out. Nope, we're done. Nope, we're going to rebuild now. We'll be back in a few more years. Maybe the last fire sale. Well, how long did it take? I think they made the playoffs in 2003, winning the World Series, and I think wasn't last year the first playoff appearance they had since then? So
well, they had the 2020. They made it in 2020 when half the league made it.
Always forget about 2020. So
don't forget about that. That hey, there's probably a banner for that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you're right. No, and I hate this for Miami fans. And I can't imagine that the Miami fan base is too rabid right now, where they're searching for more Miami content on YouTube.
Yep.
But for any of the Miami fans that are around listening to the podcast, watching our YouTube channels, if at any moment you hear us bitching, it's not to try to like slight your team or hate on your team. It's that from the way I'm looking at it, I'm mad for you and with you. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of good players. There's a great fan base that would love for a team that they could root for. And they just don't know how to get out of their own way. It's unfortunate.
Well, we do have a hot take for this. A fair or foul. I love these. I always love doing these. We got one from Jimmy Marauka on X at Cowboys Nats. He puts a take here. The Marlins should trade away Jazz Chism. I mean, I say if the right deal comes along, why not? I mean, for me personally, I didn't like the comments, so that's just my own personal opinion. I didn't like the comments that he had made about Miguel Rojas, basically saying, how there are these guys in the clubhouse that, they weren't really great leaders and whatnot. And, he made another comment about like he was taking a nap and no one woke him up for a meeting or something. And it's like,
yeah.
I don't know. Anytime I took a nap when I was on my break at work, it wasn't up to my boss to come wake me up. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. But to me, I'd say if the right deal comes along for Jazz, I don't think it hurts to take a look and see what maybe you'd get in return. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up getting moved. What do you think? Fair or foul? The Marlins should trade Jazz Chisholm Jr.
I mean, the idea is fair. Will it happen this year? I'm going to say foul. No, it won't.
Yeah.
I look at it this way. His expense to revenue equation favors Miami right now because he's only making $2.6 million in arbitration. So he's cheap. When you're looking at Luis Ariz is at 10.6. Tanner Scott is at 5.7. Jesus Luzardo is at 5.5. So only 2.6 for a guy that you could put banners up and that you could put on all your promotional and marketing material to get people to come out because they've all heard of Jazz Chism. Yeah. Next year's the year Jazz goes because you can send out all of your marketing. You can send out all of your season tickets. You can put banners up on the parking lots across the street. You can do all of that, and you have Jazz Chism on it. And then you trade him halfway through next season because next year he's making $5 million. And there will still be a good return for him because you'll have another year of control. 2026 is his third and final arbitration year. So from a business perspective, which is, I think, how Miami's going to be looking at this, the financial, the bottom line, how does it, the green, the red, the black, how does it all shape up? Jazz actually still helps them, I think, as opposed to these other players that we're really eyeing as trade candidates.
Yeah. And D-Rod in the chat, I mean, he actually makes a good point. Jazz is hurt half the season anyways. So
yeah, right.
It's probably going to end up working itself out that he ends up just staying. But yeah, I mean, if the Marlins are going to have the season they're going to have, I mean, who else is going to sell tickets? I mean,
nobody. Sandy. You'll get Sandy back.
Yeah.
But who knows? They may trade him. Look, any Kim Eng deal, no. Sandy this year is $9 million to not pitch, and then he's $17 million next year. And if they're terrible, Sandy could very likely be dealt in the offseason.
Hey, I mean, you know what? Listen, me and you are all about the trades. We're all about the rumors. Absolutely. I hope this guy pops up in trade rumors. That'd be fun to talk about. Mm-hmm. I do say foul. I do think he ends up staying. Mm-hmm. I mean, you never know. Maybe Bendix, maybe a deal comes across. Maybe a team needs a left-handed bat, needs some speed. Hey, who knows? You never know what could happen. How many times have we said, that guy's not going anywhere? Then
he's just got to be healthy. Yeah, he's got to be healthy.
That's, I think, the biggest point, right? And I will say, if they do trade him, they would get back a good amount of prospects for him. It's going to cost a lot to get him. Like you said, he's cheap. He's good when healthy. Sure. And he has years of control. So he's under control for this year, obviously, then next year and 2026. So he's not going to be cheap. So we have gotten through all the teams, and I guess one last thing we could say on this subject. Any other teams, personally, if you were to pick one other team that wasn't listed on this article, are you hitting the panic button for any other teams out there?
The Toronto Blue Jays.
No.
I am panicking. I am not. It feels like it's like I was talking with Seattle. It feels like Seattle's just going to run back and experience the same final result to their season. It feels like Toronto is going to run it back and experience the same final result they had last season. They get up and then they get, again, I'm not in their head. I'm not in the clubhouse. I don't know this. I'm just reading this. Feels like they get up. They feel a level of comfort. We won a couple games. We're good. Let's just lock in and go. They take their foot off the gas and then they start to lose games again. And they got to lose 2 or 3 in a row before they can click it back on again. And they're just going to go back and forth all season long. And at the end of the day, this is a high 80s win team that is going to be scratching and clawing for a wild card spot and then out after the first round. It feels like it is the exact same team from last year. Gosman's got some stuff going on. The velocity's down. He had a rough outing last time, but he's not concerned about it. And quite frankly, I'm really not concerned about that. I think Gosman will be back, but if that is a problem, So there's just the Toronto Blue Jays in a division where the New York Yankees are showing that they are that team. Garrett Cole or not, they are going to be that team. The Baltimore Orioles are right there as well. Yep. You've got the Rangers. I'm expecting the Astros to bounce back. You've got Cleveland. There's going to be 5 or 6 teams fighting for that final wild card spot, and Toronto's going to be in the mix, then I'm a little concerned with what this team is showing. Negative 17 run differential. Oh, I'm sorry, negative 17 run differential for the Toronto Blue Jays. They're in last place, 6-7 in the division. Last place in the division means nothing on April 10th, but the signs, what I'm seeing, I don't like it.
I'm in the same boat, right? But listen, I was a guy coming into this year. I know I said this to you. I'm a little worried about the Blue Jays, like, coming into this year. There was just something, I don't know what it was. They just weren't, I don't know if it was combined with some fatigue in the last couple of years where everyone was so high on the Blue Jays, right? World Series, here we go, crown them, right? They'd been making some good signings, good moves, and they just weren't getting it done. And it was just like, what's wrong with this team, right? There's talent here, but why aren't they getting this together, right? You're seeing the guys digress, and you just kind of, hit the nail on the head there a little earlier. The starting pitching, right? Or not just starting pitching, but the offense, right? Where they're kind of sort of just, I don't know, middle of the road again, right? Right now they're 18th in offense on Fangraphs. That's a very similar spot to where they were a lot last year. But the one thing is the pitching has not really been great so far, right? Barrios, he looked pretty good the other day. But right now, Fangraphs, they're not ranked very well, both in the rotation and in the bullpen, right? Key arms going down in the bullpen, Romano, Swanson. I don't know. It's the Toronto Blue Jays, to me, I pegged them at 84 wins. That's where I was at with them. I had the Red Sox finishing one less win than the Blue Jays, right? A part of me wanted to put the Red Sox ahead, but then everyone was going to be like, oh, here's Giraffe Neck Robbie, right? Right now, you're looking at the way the Red Sox are, but key injuries, we'll talk about that in a second. They're playing with a little more fire, right? Losing to the Orioles tonight, right? But
the Red Sox are the team. Right? The Red Sox are the poison pill for the Toronto Blue Jays. That's the team that if you're the Toronto Blue Jays and you're thinking about your season, you are pretty much if you're rationally thinking, Yankees or Orioles, one of them's winning the division, the other one's getting a wild card spot. Out west, Texas and Houston, one of them's winning the division, one of them's getting a wild card spot, and then you got a central winner. So that leaves one spot left. And you kind of figured, okay, Tampa might be there. Maybe there's one more central team in the mix, and Seattle's going to be there probably. That's what you could expect. And we can still see that playing out this year. But if Boston shows up and crashes the party, that's it. That is where you're a Blue Jay fan and you're like, well, I didn't see that coming. That adds another layer to this disgusting pie that I have no interest in eating. And that could be the Boston Red Sox. Again, at the beginning of this take, I put the Boston Red Sox as the poison pill for the Blue Jays. That's the team nobody expected to be hanging around there. And that would be the extra team that might just make it too difficult for the Blue Jays to find their way into that final wild card spot.
We'll see. If only they had Shohei Otani. You'll never know.
Well, and if they had Otani, they'd have Yamamoto, because those two were obviously a package deal.
Oh, my goodness. I hate the Dodgers. Let's move on here. But really quick, before we get to our last couple of stories, I do just have to go over tonight's sponsor, Jim. I'll be right back here. But everyone, tonight's sponsor, we have BetUS. When it comes to BetUS, it is your number one stop for all of your sports betting needs. So if I'm looking at some of the lines for tomorrow, I'm looking at some of these games, right? We got the Brewers, we got the Reds, right? We got the Pirates, we got the Phillies, right? We got the Twins, Tigers, good divisional matchup there. Got the Red Sox and the Orioles again tomorrow. But if I'm looking at one of these games, if I'm looking for a pick, or if I could maybe get some good value out of it, I'm looking at the Pirates and the Phillies here, right? Pirates off to a good start. Did take the loss today, all right? Going up against a tough matchup in Philly. But listen, if I'm going with one of these right now, I mean, I'd have to go, if I were to go for a pick that I think could win me a few bucks. I think personally, I would go with the Pittsburgh Pirates. So if I throw down $20, that would win me right around 25. Let's say I wanted to throw down a little bit more. Let's say I throw down 40. That would win me $51.20. Not bad. So out of all of these, I would actually probably lean towards the Pirates. Again, they're off to a good start, fun start this year. There's some other matchups, right? We got the Twins, we got the Tigers, Astros. Had the Royals beat up on the Astros today. So, hey, maybe you take the hot hand, go with the Kansas City Royals, right? If you throw down, let's say, I don't know, $40 for the Royals, that would win you 48. So I personally think you could go with either of these, right? If you wanted to go for, I guess, a bit of an upset pick, that would be good. Now, if I'm looking at some other matchups, right, the Orioles, hey, winning the first two against the Red Sox, something's got to give. Maybe the Red Sox come out with a win tomorrow. We'll see. But maybe you could go there. But for me personally, if I were to go with a fun pick, I'm going Pirates over the Phillies. I'll take the over. I'll take the plus 128 there. But there's a whole bunch of different ways to play. It's not just baseball, right? We still got basketball going on, hockey as well. So there's definitely a whole bunch of ways to play. They got game props as well as player props as well. So definitely check all of this out. Your number one stop for all your sports betting needs, BetUS. The link is in the description down below. You get a 125% deposit or bonus on your first 3 deposits. So make sure you take advantage of it. It's a great deal. Use the code JOIN125. So let's get to it. Jim, are you still with me, my friend? Are you still with me?
I'm here.
I realized when I went to do the ad read, you weren't there with me. Well, right before I was like, oh wait, Jim's not going to be here. So sorry, I had to kind of put you in hiding for a second. But here we go. A couple more stories just before we get wrapped up for tonight. We got Jackson Holliday. Speaking of, I just mentioned in the ad read for BetUS, we had the Orioles and the Red Sox, and Jackson Holliday making his major league debut tonight, finally getting called up. I don't know. I mean, did he really, was it because of the stats he was putting up at AAA, or I don't know. It seems like to me maybe they were kind of just stalling a little bit to get that extra year of control. That's the way it came off to me. But Jackson Holliday, major league debut tonight. Quick reaction to that. I know you did a video on that earlier, so everyone go check out that video. But what do you think? What are your overall thoughts on Jackson Holliday finally getting the call?
He has been, last year he went through all the different levels from A all the way up to AAA. And at every jump, he was able to adjust to transition and still be a good, productive baseball player. So I'm expecting, I know the jump from AAA to the majors, that's a big one. But I think that this guy's got the mental makeup. He's the son of a major league ball player. Yeah. I think a lot has been ingrained in him on preparedness and being able to handle those challenges. So I think that he's going to make an immediate impact for this Baltimore team. In the end, based on his call up, this is not going to be a service manipulation issue. He is going to still accrue a year of service time. Now, could you blame Baltimore if they did it though? Right? His agent is Scott Boras, and there's probably not going to be an extension before he reaches free agency. And if he could get an extra year, could you blame him? I mean, they claimed that they wanted to see him play more second base. They wanted to see him get more at bats against lefties. I also think they probably wanted to give guys like Arias and Westberg the opportunity to just go out there and play and not worry about any kind of, repetition, lack of reps, because Jackson Holliday was there. And Arias, not great start. Westberg killed it today. And even guys like Austin Hayes, Austin Hayes is kind of indirectly impacted because you've also got Mateo there, and Mateo works some infield, and Mateo can slide to the outfield. And if you feel like Mateo has had enough reps and you want him to get playing time, Hayes is struggling. Mateo's been good. So I think there was maybe for this first week and a half, it was like, all right, let's start the season with this crew. Jackson's not that far away, but we want to see a couple things from him, and we want to see a couple things from the other guys on our team. And I applaud him for going out there and bringing him up and not waiting knowing that they could get another year of service time. And this, because look, I've said it several times tonight. These games do matter. If you get into a spot where you're not winning the division, or even if you are, and it's a tight race, it's only a couple of games. You'd like to have won the game tonight against Boston. If they don't, now I know Jackson didn't directly contribute significantly to tonight's game. I think he had an RBI, but I don't think he got a hit. You have a situation where if he's going to help you win games now, that's good, because you could want those games in your back pocket in September.
Yeah, sure, you could see the reasons for maybe having a little bit of time in the minors, right? He was going to be playing second base. He was striking out a bit in spring training, wasn't walking nearly as enough. Maybe that could have been him just trying to, do more damage, right, during spring training, right? Trying to make that opening day roster. I don't know, because the advantage of putting him on the opening day roster was that if he wins Rookie of the Year, the Orioles would end up getting a draft pick out of it, right? As it's like the bonus is what they basically call it. So, it comes off to me as they were okay with just not having that, so they could get that extra year of control. It is what it is, right? At the end of the day, but. Yeah, and you mentioned a good point there, right? Scott Boras, it is what it is. But I think what he did in the minor leagues last year, he pretty much showed like he's ready to go. He's a phenom, right? This is a kid where I don't want to say kid. I'm in my 30s. It's not like I'm Gandalf the Grey over here. But when you really look at he's 20 years old, right? So, but he showed the maturity, right? The plate discipline is through the roof. Right, his approach at the plate, the way he takes pitches, like he's a nightmare to pitch to. He's just so good at everything, right? Hits for that average. The power is only going to get better and better, and it's already there. He's not going to be playing shortstop, sure, but hey, he'll be fine playing second base. So, you could see the arguments for maybe having him play a couple games, but he played 10 games in the minors, right? I don't know. To me, it just screams service time manipulation, right? So it is what it is at the end of the day. But, hey, good for him. It's good to see the youth coming up. That's what I'm excited for, is just the youth, this new generation of players. They're so talented, right? We already see Jackson Chourio up this year doing some good things. So, so many young players across the game. Good to see. Good to see. And the top prospect, it's always fun. But we can always say he made his debut at Fenway Park.
Boston.
So maybe that's a sign. Maybe he'll be with the Red Sox one day. I'm just saying. But speaking of the Red Sox, what a transition there. What a transition. Hey, the Red Sox, they could use a shortstop. Trevor Story. Out for the year. I'm sure you have seen, the play that ended up hurting his shoulder. As soon as he landed, Jim, on his arm, I knew he was done. I've seen it, right? I've seen that injury before. I've seen when guys land awkwardly on a shoulder or whatever. The way he reacted, the initial reaction, just when he fell, it was immediate. The guy was writhing in pain. I remember I was just on vacation recently. I was in Michigan, and I'm like, yep. He's out for the year. Yep, he's done. I knew it, and a lot of people were like, no, like he's not out for the year. You gotta wait, right? It'll be okay. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Like, did you just see the way this guy landed on his arm? Like, it's not that he just like fell like on the side of his shoulder. He fell max force with his arm stretched out. Like, it was so obvious he was done, right? And just the way he reacted. So. Huge blow. I really feel for the guy because he worked so hard this offseason, right? The first 2 years of the deal were terrible. Missed a lot of time. Didn't really perform. Great defense last year, but that was a big thing coming into this year. They needed that improvement at shortstop and just their defense overall. he was looking like, already he was providing energy, already showing great defense out there.
Mm-hmm.
Just a bummer, absolute bummer. And not just because of that, but people say I look like Trevor Story. I don't think so, but I just feel for the guy. I feel for anyone that they worked so hard in the off season. He was doing so much to try and just be that leader, right? Tough blow. I got to hear your thoughts. What was your initial reaction? What do you think about this for the Red Sox moving forward?
Well, I mean, my initial reaction is that this deal, and no disrespect meant to Trevor Story, it's just the way things have played out. This deal, is it one of the worst deals the Red Sox have ever done? I mean, you never know. You had no idea this was coming and this would happen, but the way it's just, I worry that it is more ammunition for this front office to not spend money on free agents, right? Because this is exactly why. Like, I can almost see Craig going into that front office, that boardroom, to sit down, and he's got his portfolio of these free agents he wants to go after, and they're like, Craig, close the book. Close the book, Craig. We're not spending more than $10 million a year on anybody. We're not going more than 2 years because Trevor Story. It just feels like it's a setback for the season, because obviously what he could bring you could be significant. But I guess this sort of kind of gets back to, that's a disappointment. But just in terms of the Red Sox and the mentality and, signing big free agents and how this went down with Bogarts as well. He was kind of Bogarts' replacement.
Yeah.
And Xander had to go recruit him. It's just, the whole thing is weird and reeks.
I will say this. I basically, another reaction that I had, didn't really post it on Twitter. I didn't think it was really appropriate at the time. But two words that came into my head right away were TikTok. And that's Marcelo Meyer's clock, right? I think you're going to see him at some point this year. I think it's only a matter of time. I think the clock is ticking, and I think the clock could be ticking on Trevor Story's time in Boston. I think it's one of those things where it's not Pablo Sandoval. Pablo Sandoval was just a terrible signing all the way around, not just statistically. Trevor Story will be, how do I word this, the better signing than Pablo Sandoval, because at least Trevor Story was a guy that was working hard and trying to contribute and just trying to be a leader, where Pablo Sandoval, guy never cared about his weight. He was liking pictures on Instagram during games. The guy was a complete joke in Boston, saying at one point he had nothing to prove. Sandoval was an absolute joke with the Red Sox. Glad this guy seems to have gotten his life turned around, but with the Red Sox, worst signing in Red Sox history if you don't think Carl Crawford. But Trevor Story, it stinks, because the guy really wanted to be something with the Red Sox, and it just didn't work out. I would not be surprised at all if the Red Sox take the Chris Sale route next offseason and they end up just trading him somewhere, even if that means they have to eat some of the contract, because I do think Marcelo Meyer's time is coming this year. I did predict that him, Roman Anthony, Kyle Teal would be up at some point this year. I just think those guys are so advanced and so good. And, at Winter Weekend this past offseason, they had those guys on the stage there, front and center for the fans to see. I think it's only a matter of time before you see all three of those guys up at the major leagues this year. But I think Marcelo Meyer, you're going to see, I say, a late season call up for him. And I think it's very possible he's your shortstop next year. I don't know. I just think it's kind of funny how these things work out. Trevor Story going down, I would not be surprised if his career with the Red Sox is over.
He's got 22.5 next year, then a player option that he can lock in and grab the 2026 and 2027 season at $25 million a year. So they're going to need to find, again, it's the deal, but it's also the circumstances that were around it, right? Yeah. When it happened, it felt like they're choosing Story over Bogarts. And now Xander has not been amazing with San Diego. There's a lot of people that want to write that deal as one of the worst deals San Diego's ever done, because Bogey's not really crushing it in San Diego.
Yeah.
but I mean, who's to say that there isn't something going on in his head having to go from Boston to San Diego? And if he had stayed in Boston, it would be different for Bogarts. Yeah, this whole thing, it's been this uncomfortable tabloidal kind of story thing, and it just doesn't
I think you
get
could
any
say
better.
this could be something taken out of context completely. But I actually wonder if just the pressure was something that actually contributed to that Trevor Story injury, to be completely honest. Hear me out. I know that sounds a little crazy, but thinking, this is a guy missing the first 2 years of his deal, basically a wash, being that guy brought in to basically be the next guy to take over for Xander Bogaerts. You just look at how hard he was playing, and all the power to him. I mean, this guy was phenomenal, right? In the few games that he played this year, he's looking great out in the field. Hustle, just gritty, getting dirty. Guy was doing everything great. But man, he really, really, really outstretched himself for that in that particular play. Like, the guy went almost over into third base land trying to get that ball. And all the credit to him for, the max effort.
Yeah.
I wonder, it's like, at some points, it's like, I don't know, did maybe that pressure get to him a little bit where it's like, oh, man, I got to make that play, right? It's kind of hard to say, right? Because you want to play all out, but at the same time, though, man, really got him right there. It broke his shoulder, basically, right? Ended up basically being a fracture, right? I don't know. Maybe that's a bit of a hot take. Maybe someone gets a little upset at that because I don't want to fault a guy for playing hard, right? But,
if he's stretching beyond the limits of his physical abilities, then right, you put yourself in a chance to do more bad than good.
Yeah, there comes a time where it's like, is a play worth just, because at the end of the day, availability is the big thing. And again, I don't want people to take that, the wrong way, because I'm all for a player playing hard, but it's like, man, that one was, it's just tough, man. It's like, I feel for the guy. I don't want something like that to happen to a player, but, I don't know. I can't fault the guy for going all out like that. Anyone would, especially a player like him that wants to prove himself. And, in the end, it is what it is.
I'm bummed out because I'm disappointed because I was on the Trevor Story bounce back bandwagon.
Me too.
I thought this was going to be that we were going to grab a glimpse we were going to get a season of that Trevor Story Colorado when he was in his mid-20s there, when he was 30 homer threat. I thought we were going to get that guy, and it's too bad that we're not going to get that guy this year. Hopefully he can bounce back and find a way to contribute, and we can still get that. But this is the third year now where there has been injuries that derailed his season. We want to, just if guys deal with injuries, it's so easy to kind of get on them for it. But I think, and guys, I'm thinking of specifically, players like Anthony Rendon is hurt a ton. On top of it, Anthony Rendon says some really stupid things, so that adds to it. Yeah. But, injuries and what they do. Carl Crawford got hurt. It's just, I don't know. It's a bummer.
Yeah. It's funny how Boston, it's like, it doesn't work out for a lot of guys. And it just, over the years, I've seen so many where you get so excited about a guy, Crawford was a weird one when that happened. I remember I was like, oh, okay. Carl Crawford. Oh, okie dokie. Well, okay. He's been killing us for years. He's definitely one of the better players in the game. Okay. I'm not going to be mad at this, but I remember thinking it was weird. And sort of the same thing with Trevor Story, right? Because you were thinking like, okay, well, all right, it's a little weird, but you can make it make sense, right? It just felt like Story, when you think about it, just from the very beginning, right? Because Bogaerts still had that, that 1 year, and then, you know, you're thinking like, okay, well, Story gets play second this year, then he'll play short next year if Bogarts doesn't come back. And it just felt weird, right? It wasn't just like that perfect, fit, right off the bat. The same thing was Crawford at the same time, right? Because you had, Jacoby Ellsbury, right? You had, like, you didn't need a Carl Crawford, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I do think, personally, if I were to make a prediction, I think Trevor Story's playing in a different uniform next offseason. What do you think? Or next season, sorry.
Oh, I don't know. I
don't know. That contract, but I just wonder if they figure it out.
That's a great question. It will this front office, will this ownership, I mean, with the current way that they're operating financially, will they pay for Trevor Story to go somewhere else? Yeah. That's the only thing I wonder. I know that same ownership group that worked on that David Price deal, the Chris Sale thing is shorter term in terms of years, right? Unless I'm wrong on that. Correct me if I'm wrong on the Chris Sale thing.
Yeah, I think there was less control there.
There's less there. The Trevor Stories for a longer period of time. I don't know. It would certainly, they won't have a need for him based, what you're talking about, what you're outlining with the prospects that are coming up. They won't have a need for him. So it will be of interest to them to maybe move on if they can find a taker.
Yeah, and Story, his name did pop up in some trade rumors this year. Not any specifics, but his name did pop up in some outlets out there this past offseason. So
yeah,
who knows? We'll see. But everyone, we're going to wrap it up there. And we are here live on YouTube, but you can check out all of everything myself and Jim do on the Barreled Up podcast. So make sure you go to Spotify, make sure you go to Google, Apple, Stitcher, any podcast land where you may roam. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you consume your podcasts. Make sure you give us a good review if you like our face. But yeah, we're really going to try and grow this podcast this year, the Barreled Up podcast, through Odyssey. But make sure you have the notifications turned on for that wherever you listen to your podcast. So everyone, thank you for joining us. We are going to be doing this live once a week, and then the other time where we have a podcast, it will be only through audio format only. It won't be here live on YouTube unless it's like a busy time of the year, Jim. Then maybe we got to go.
Yeah, well,
more times. So.
There'll be more, but yeah, we're scheduling to do another one Friday morning, and that's going to be audio only. So you'll want to find us. We will put it out on Twitter or X or 10 or whatever you want to call it. We'll put a link out there. We'll put a link on YouTube channels to go find the audio. But yeah, our next recording that we do on Friday will be audio only. So you'll want to go find the podcast for that.
All right. Well, Jim, thanks for coming on tonight. Do appreciate it. Everyone, if you can, on the way out, hit that like button for us. Subscribe if you are new. And also, I put out a video a little earlier. Go check that out if you haven't already. Jim put out a video, I believe, today or yesterday. I can't remember.
Last night, yeah, midnight. So I guess technically today. I posted one at midnight about the Jackson Holliday debut.
Well, yes. Go check out all the videos, right? There's a lot of content out there. So,
yes.
All righty, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. We appreciate it. Have yourselves a great night. We'll talk to you next time.